Mr. Speaker, sir, I felt compelled to speak on this motion, having pushed the government to resume building hawker centres since I became member of this House in 2006. The perfect opportunity came in 2011 when Minister Vivian Balakrishnan became the Minister for Environment. And I have known him to be a minister who is always open-minded about new policy ideas or policy changes, and that he has no hesitation to move if he feels that is the right thing to do. Hence, on our first environment GPC meeting with him in 2011, I remember my first ask to him at the meeting was to review the hawker centre policy and to consider resuming building new hawker centres. My arguments then were, firstly, coffee shops were exchanging hands at very high prices at that time, in the tens of millions, and which had direct flow-on effects on store renters and added upward pressures on food prices. There's a need for government to intervene so that the mass retail food market will continue to be affordable. Secondly, we need to lower the barrier to entry for hawkers to enter the trade so as to keep the hawkers trade alive and going. The inadequate supply of affordable hawker spaces then would be a major impediment to would-be hawkers. So we need to tackle the insufficient supply of hawker stores. Thirdly, my third argument then was it may not be intended that way, but at its inception, but today's hawker centres have become our unique social melting pot. There's huge social value in having a publicly run, not-for-profit common eating spaces where people from all walks of life can come together under one roof to dine. So hawker centres came about in 1971 when the then government relocated 18,000 street hawkers that operated under unhygienic, unregulated environment and moved them into modestly built and inexpensive premises that comes with stricter hygiene regulations and proper licensing. Upon completing the relocation exercise in around mid-1980s, the government stopped building new hawker centres. And the reason is that the government felt that the provision of eating places and food can be left to the private sector, such as coffee shops and food court business operators. But that's a good reason for that, a good position to be in at that time. Indeed, the government should not be the sole or dominant retail F&B space provider and manager. The private sectors can and should have a role in this F&B ecosystem. And besides, the governments also need to focus on this role as a regulator too. However, what happened in around 2011 and prior was that the market mechanisms has not worked out in the way as intended. Coffee shops and food court price spaces were traded at bubbly high prices. It will have direct bearing on to the store renters and thereafter the cooked food prices. This will not be sustainable to hawker trade and will impact the overall affordability of cooked food prices. So my point here is that while we leave it to market forces to sort out most of the things, there can be situations where the market forces can bring us to the wrong place, such as runaway coffee shop prices, unhealthy market powers, and monopolistic behavior by dominant players, or that where coffee shops or retail F&B spaces have become speculative assets for trading. There is a need for the government to intervene by way of supplying more hawker spaces than to stabilize the markets. No different from how the government intervened to manage, say, our currency, the Singapore dollar, to keep it within the trading band, or the cooling measures to tame the hot property markets. Hawker centers are relatively low capex infrastructure. They are mostly non-air conditioned and built with a pretty unsophisticated design, liberally with the purpose to keep maintenance costs low. Because of the typically large floor spaces, it can accommodate more stores under one roof and offer a wide selection of food choices. As a result, hawker centers are a more competitive marketplace, which help keep prices of food in check. With lower barrier to entry and lower running costs, it helps improve the viability of hawker trade businesses and keep the hawker trade and its food culture alive. So I'm glad then in 2011 that Minister Vivian then was able to finally persuade the cabinet to resume building hawker centres, and the first 10 new hawker centres was announced, with the first one being built in Bukit Panjang. Although I must declare I was not an MP there yet. But after some wait, I finally have one at my constituency, my then constituency in the Senja area. And this is how we enter into the new era of hawker centres development. I will call this the Hawker Centre 2.0, where a new generation of modern hawker centres sprout up across the island. My last count, we have added 14 new hawker centres since 2011, with 6 more in the pipeline to be built by 2027. NEA still directly manage the existing 121 hawker centres and markets. Well, I'm glad that the government has decided to resume building hawker centres and giving the hawker trade a new boost in life. We also know that it comes with both new and old challenges. First challenge, succession. Our first generation and even second generation hawkers are catching up in age. It's understandable that the younger generation may not see hawker trade as their first career choice, although I also have met quite a number of younger ones as well, including at Bukit Panjang. Mr. Walter Tay is one of them who runs the father and son carrot cake. But clearly, the numbers are still not enough to replace the earlier generations of hawkers. This is a serious challenge to the hawker trade and to our hawker culture. In recent years, the government introduced a number of programs with the aim to encourage more to join the hawker trade, such as the incubator store program to assist aspiring hawkers with pre-fitted equipment to lower startup costs, hawker succession scheme, which aims to assist veteran hawkers who intend to retire but unable to find successors, to pass down their skills, recipes, and hawker stores to aspiring hawkers. And which also come with a generous $23,000 of ex gratia payments, as well as monthly stipend in the initial months. There's also the Hawkers Development Program, which helps to equip aspiring and existing hawkers with the relevant skills and competency to run hawker business. We have to keep reviewing this program to see if it achieves the intended outcomes, and if need be, to introduce new schemes to encourage new hawkers to join the trade. So the society at large can also play a part to keep the hawkers trade going by not only consuming at the hawker centers, but also respect hawker trade as a profession of choice. Many enter the trade as a calling, and because of their passion for culinary and local food culture, we should show appreciation and cheer them on, the hawkers, including their store assistants and the cleaners and the dishwasher at the hawker centers. The second challenge is insufficient manpower. Hawker cooked food businesses are labor-intensive work. The number of meals served and how long is the store opening hours are dependent on the number of store assistants available at the stores. These days, it is difficult to find local store assistants. Among the reasons, the work at hawker centers is physically demanding and the work environment not so appealing. The policy position has always been that hawker stallholders should be reserved for Singaporeans and PRs to safeguard the local identity of our hawker culture. SMS Kopukun announced last month that NEA will be relaxing the manpower policy to allow hawkers to hire long-term visit pass holders in January next year. I hope that can, in some way, alleviate the manpower situation. Of course, the other aspects to help hawkers improve productivities are also important. So I understand that hawker centers have tapped the various productivity support programs, such as the Productive Hawker Centers program, to enjoy the 70% tiered subsidies for centralized dishwashing. The Hawkers Productivity Grant has also helped individual hawkers with 80% co-funding to purchase kitchen automation equipment and digital solutions. There are also other bulk purchasing services initiatives to reduce the toils on the workers. Having a larger pool of available store assistants and to continue to work on improving productivity, hopefully can move the needle and alleviate the situation faced by the hawkers. The third challenge is about the rising input costs and the price tension, the food price tensions. Hawker, like all of us, wants a decent wage. Consumers also want affordable or value for money food. So how do we achieve both, and where is the balance? Indeed, prices of cooked food has risen in the last few years, primarily due to rising input costs. Data from the Department of Statistics shows that hawker food prices rose by 6.1% in 2023, and the increase is broad-based. Raw food ingredients are among the key components which are pricier today due to higher global food commodity prices. The extreme weather also have an impact, and the knock-on effects from higher energy costs and transport costs. In response to a recent PQ that I found, MSE replied that based on NEA surveys, the main cost driver for storeholders were ingredients and manpower, which combined account for 70 to 80% of the hawkers' expenditure. Over the weekend, I have a chat with Mr. Ong Chai Lai, who runs the popular lor mee store at Bukit Panjang Hawker Centres, to validate the NEA's numbers. And he shared with me that indeed a major part of the cost increases come from his ingredients, such as the fish and the meat that he served, as well as the spices for his lor mee. He added that post-COVID, the prices of these ingredients have fluctuated at a wider range, and he's trying to cope with the volatility. So how do we fight rising prices that are externally driven, such as supply chain disruptions, the war in Ukraine, the weather, the volatility in the global food commodity markets, and that we import almost all of these inputs? Fortunately, in the case of Singapore, we have some very helpful levers to mitigate the impact to our domestic economy. Firstly, of course, is our strong Singapore dollar. Most of what we consume are imported, and if our Singapore dollar is weak, it will be a double whammy to every one of us. We know that a strong Singapore dollar is not a given, and it should not be taken for granted. Markets have to see the value in the Singapore dollar on the basis of fundamentals. Whether do we have a strong and sound economy? Are we strong and cohesive society? And how are we as a country? Secondly, while we use the exchange rate to reduce the impact of imported inflation, it's not possible to totally negate the rising costs. Hence, it's important to work on the other side of the equation as well, which is income. We need to keep working on income to rise so that it can help us mitigate the inflations. And here we need to keep our economy strong and to attract investment so as to keep having good jobs and incomes for our people. The third lever that we have is that we must always have a competitive, efficient, and vibrant business ecosystem where consumers have choices as to where they want to consume. In Chinese, they call 货比三家. Consumer must have choices of at least 3 places to go to consume so that there's always competition. A competitive business landscape helps to keep costs and prices in check and help eradicate potential profiteering. Fourthly, there's the need for the government to continue to give direct assistances to help Singaporeans cope with the rising costs. And we do have a whole range of assistance schemes, like the GST vouchers, the USAFE vouchers, the SNCC vouchers, the cost of living payouts, the CDC vouchers, workfare, civil support, and so on. Some of these assistance measures are permanent in nature, and it adds up to billions of dollars from our budget allocation. Again, we are fortunate to be in this good fiscal position to be able to help Singaporeans, households directly and very extensively as well, and to directly assist Singaporeans and households to cope with the cost of living. The fifth lever is every one of us, the community support initiatives. We know in various constituency community, we do all have our ground-up initiatives to help our fellow residents cope with cost of living. So, for example, at Bukit Panjang Town, we do have this what we call the monthly $1 initiative, $1 due initiative, 一元为定, to help reduce the impact of cost of living to our fellow residents. And these are funding from, we use funding from the community or from donors, and not imposing it on the stallholders or the hawkers. There are also private sector initiatives at the neighborhood, such as the DBS 5 million hawker meal scheme, and the various grocery support schemes such as by 好人好事, the new life community services, and also organizations like the Association of Banks of Singapore, who also bring volunteers and to offer groceries to our residents. So before I end, I just want to speak on another issue, which is with regards to the outlier high rental bids during the monthly tender exercise by NEA. Out of the norm, high rentals do attract a lot of attentions and may influence the future bidders, the would-be storeholders bidders, to bid higher and thereby push up the overall average rental. So we need to figure out how we can prevent that from happening. SMS Co has taken pains to explain to the House at last month's sitting that outliers, high tender bids are not the norm, and that the median rent typically average around $1,200 per month in the last 10 years, as per his recent speech. And some subsidized stockholders actually pay about $300 per month. NEA allocates stores on the price-based tender basis with no reserve bid price. So store renters can go below, for example, $100 per month, or even to $1 as it happens before in the past. I noted the announcement last month that NEA will now stagger the downward rental adjustments over a longer period of time, after 3 years, referencing the assessed market rent, the AMR. Let's keep a close watch in the subsequent bidding whether the change has any effects on discouraging outliers bids. I also welcome NEA's move to make available more information and also make available the online business cost estimation tool to help tenderers make more informed and realistic bid. But having said that, I would still want to come back to my suggestion that I raised in the last month's sitting, which is that besides standard price, we should also look at the quality of the bid, or what we call the price quality method, PQM. For example, in the event that the top bid rent price significantly deviate from the AMR, NEA can carry out a deeper evaluation on the bidders, whether the bidder really have the means and the capabilities to sustain their business with such high rental rates. I think that way you can maybe remove some of this unrealistic bid and then maybe reduce the incidence of outliers in the rental bid price. So in conclusion, since the policy changed to build hawker centers about 10 years ago, credit to MSC, NEA, and the various government agencies, we have seen concerted efforts and significant resources being allocated to support hawker trade. We now see really modernized hawker centers, better facilities, better ambience. So this is a good thing for the hawkers ecosystem. Besides the various support schemes to support individual hawkers, there are also the hawker center upgrading program to upgrade older hawker centers. There's also the toilet improvement programs for hawker centers, which my town council, Ulu Panjang hawker centers, recently just benefited. And then there's also the CDC program to support local hawkers, as well as the heartland digitalisation packages to help support the overall hawker center ecosystem. Of course, there will continue to be challenges to the hawker trade, but as what Mr. Edward Chia stated in his amended motion, that we must continue to support our hawkers by regularly reviewing the policy and to sustain our hawker ecosystem so that both the hawkers can earn a fair livelihood and Singaporeans at large can enjoy good and affordable hawker foods. So with that, I support the amended motion in the name of Mr. Edward Chia. Thank you.